o'clock.
That was going to be late.
I thought no one was going to come. I walked in here 15 minutes ago and there was nobody here. And I said, oh, I guess everyone's still on vacation. How is everyone tonight?
Still on vacation.
Still on vacation. Let's see. We got one more minute. I hate to start early because then people feel like you said it was over. Did everyone have a good Christmas? Yes. I had a nice Christmas. New Year's. My heart is still on vacation. My head is here, I promise. My focus may not be real good tonight, so you'll have to keep me on task. So, can everyone in the back hear me okay? Yes. Everyone can hear okay? Okay. If, for those of you, is there anyone here who has not been to one of my meetings before? Okay, there's a few. Okay. If you have not, generally, my name is Sue Frost. I represent District 4, which is Rio Linda, Alberta, Antelope, Citrus Heights, Orangeville, Rancho Murrieta, Gold River, and a sliver of Carmichael, North Highlands, Fair Oaks, and Rancho Cordova. So they call my district Florida because it's shaped like Florida, and so they call me Florida. And generally for our meetings, we meet 5 times a year, every other month, and we take a little break in the summertime because nobody wants to come in the summertime anyway, they're on vacation. And what we generally do is I'll give a little update for the first 20 or 30 minutes, and then I'll open it up for questions and answers. I hope you'll feel comfortable to ask whatever's on your mind or share with me issues that you're concerned about or mad about or happy about. I like the happy ones a lot. And don't be shy, because even if I don't know the answer, sometimes I'll call on Matt Hedges, who's my chief of staff, and we'll figure it out. So with that, this evening, I wonder if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this evening, we have a few people in the room who serve on elected boards and committees and commissions. So if you're elected or if you've been appointed to a county commission, would you please stand, quickly introduce yourself, and tell us who you are and what board you serve on.
I'm Cynthia Sailors. I'm your elected Sacramento Metropolitan Fire representative for this area.
Cindy, do you live in this area also?
Yes, I live in Alberta.
That's right. That's what I thought. Okay, great.
She's my neighbor.
Thanks for coming.
Charlie Moore, and I live in Alberta, 2 houses down from Cynthia. And I'm a Rio Linda, Alberta Recreation and Park District Director. And I will be running again in 2020.
I'm Lisa Morris. I'm on the Rio Linda, Alberta Recreation and Park District, also with Charlie, and also the Rio Linda, Alberta Chamber of Commerce.
Brent Hill, Rio Linda, Alberta Community Water District. I'm a board member, and I will not be running in 2020. I'm going to run in that way.
Bob Ashton, Twin River Youth High School District Area 4, elected. I covered Rio Linda, Alberta, and parts of Sacramento County and Placer County. Also on the Sacramento County Park Commission as a point.
Thank you. Former board members in here also. I don't know if Shirley was. I know Roger Mitchell was on the Fire District Board. And if you're For those of you anyone who's run for office, you have to run for office to really understand that it takes a special, it's not easy to put yourself out there not knowing if you can win. So it's a special opportunity to do that, and we need more people that will get involved with the civic leadership responsibilities in the community. And we also have over 67 boards and commissions at the Sacramento County level, and if you're interested in leadership, I can get you in leadership. And we have a lot of positions that are open, and so contact Matt or myself or my office and say, I'm interested in knowing where the openings are, and we'll send you a list of the openings, and you can say which ones you think might be exciting, and we'll go from there. There is an application and interview process, but if you're interested in leadership, we can definitely get you there. And I want to also acknowledge the good stock, the good parents of Rio Linda who raise these kids who can win state championships. What was his name?
Cameron.
Scatabo. Oh my goodness. That kid he was like a machine. Did you see the video?
Yes.
He's amazing. I think he's going to go, I think he'll be a professional someday. So
Where's the video?
It's on YouTube, and do we know where that is?
RioLindaOnline.com has it as well.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to watch his amazing run. So tonight I have a couple things to just briefly go over. Did I talk with you about the retail analysis, the consultant that we brought in to study the retail shopping centers in the county? I wanted to just give you an update on that because they did come in December to give us their final analysis and to tell us which retail centers they thought would stand out as the ones that we should help or do everything we can to focus on. I also have wanted to give you a small update on homelessness and what's going on in your area. There's something new going on in the region for veterans. I thought I would just, if anyone has any questions regarding the Inspector General and the Sheriff, that issue is pretty much resolved and we're moving forward, so I thought I would cover briefly on that. And it's that time again. We are going to be with 2019, there's some new things coming, so I want to give you some updates about some special things that our staff are working on at the office. And maybe a quick mention about the Panhandle. Not a whole lot on the Panhandle, but just a quick mention about that, because that's an issue that will continue in 2019. The first thing I wanted to do is just kind of focus on economic development in Rio Linda and let you know that the county is working really hard to try to figure out how we can benefit the unincorporated areas. In the county, for District 4, I represent 2 incorporated cities, Citrus Heights and Folsom, and 5 unincorporated areas, Gold River, Rio Linda, Alberta, Antelope, Orangeville, Rancho Marietta. So those unincorporated areas don't have an organized staff that can work on economic development or write grants, or it's harder to get the focus onto the unincorporated areas, and the county is really putting their best forward right now over the past year, or actually the past 2 years, to figure out how we can benefit those communities, like Rio Linda is one of them. And one of the things that we did in the last year was we hired Cosmont, a consultant who came in and did an analysis. They did a study on the demographics and all the trends that are going on around retail shopping centers, and because the online purchasing is impacting the brick and mortar businesses in our communities, and what they're saying is that these big shopping centers that we have are going to be phasing out, and people are actually changing the way they do things. The next generation, a little bit younger than Matt because he's a little old. I know. But, you know, the millennials, they shop online. I mean, they even shop for their food and have it delivered in the box, and they cook that way. So I think it was really fun and interesting to learn what Cosmont brought, and what was particularly interesting and what I wanted to share with you was that they identified they did a study on 21 different retail centers, but they zeroed in on a few that actually were what they considered retail centers that the county could potentially, we could maybe hope to help them transition during this time so that they don't completely fail. And you have a shopping center here in Rio Linda. What's the name of your shopping center?
Rio Linda Plaza.
Marvel.
It used to be
Marvel.
but it's Rio Linda now.
And Marvel is, what was interesting about the study they did is that some of the shopping centers they were looking at this concept of whether or not the shopping centers are losing or leaking, having leakage is what they call it. And leakage means that there's business that could be had here, that you have a demographic here that's doing a lot of shopping somewhere else because they don't have those resources here. And Rio Linda was one of the shopping centers that actually had a lot of leakage. And so they determined that, you know, this would be a good area to try to focus. And one of the good things that's happening here is that we have a couple of subdivisions that are going to come in over the next decade or two that's going to bring more population, which is going to drive, you know, desire for businesses to want to be here, because there will be those folks that will actually buy at their shopping center. But what the county is going to be trying to do over the next year or two is we're going to be working closely. Our staff are going to be meeting with property owners. We're going to be going to national trade shows. We'll be looking at proactively trying to look at what are the possibilities, what kind of possible markets do we have, meaning what kind of businesses would be successful here, and what kind of sub-markets would be successful, and what can the county do to help that along? Is it changing zoning, or is it giving them a break on, you know, tax credit of some kind, or, you know, looking at being creative on how we look at that. And so with Rio Linda, they're going to plan on doing that and hope that there can be some possible assistance for the existing owner for recruiting tenants. One of the things that they did come to realize is that with the shift in the national retail market, there will be a lot of these shopping centers that will fail, that will go out of business. And the ones that cannot re-tenant or repurpose, hi Sam, that's my niece. She lives in Rio Linda. Sorry, the ones that can't re-tenant and repurpose are gonna fail. So that's the goal, is what can we do to help them. What I thought it was pretty interesting, they talked about internet sales are at 80 billion and the projections are going to 120 billion. There's what people used to do is they used to go to the shopping mall to shop, and while they were there they would eat or they would go to the movies. And now what they're saying is people will go to eat or to be entertained or to be in a place that they like to be, and while they're there they might shop. And so it's all upside down. It's even down to banks that are building a restaurant in the middle of their bank to draw people to want to come eat there and do their banking while they're there. So it's interesting how that is playing out, and we're going to be, so Rio Linda will be at the top of the list of one of those areas that we'll be kind of watching and focusing on and trying to figure out what can we do to help. I did want to let you know that we do have a new homeless assistance resource team. I think I told you a little bit about that in the last meeting. It's in Del Paso Heights, but our folks in Rio Linda and North Highlands and Antelope are part of their service area. And so even though the meetings are over there, one of our Rio Linda folks are the treasurer for their heart group. And they're in the very beginning stages, but they're going to be having a big launch in February. And they're hoping that they'll be able to maybe consider a parking lot shelter this year, which means that people would, like families, can drive up to a church and they can stay in their own car. These are families that are homeless, they're living in their car. They can stay at that church parking lot in their car. The church serves them dinner in the community room, and then they have a police security there so that they know they're safe there. It's kind of a, it's a new idea that they're working on with in other areas. I just want to also mention that this homeless thing, I have been reading some articles lately about homelessness, and this is not just California. This is going on all over the place, and it's a very interesting dynamic. That and the latest article I read was that it's almost like it's creating a whole new class, a whole new lower class of residents that are dependent on the community. And so one of the things that I want to point out is that the county has worked really hard to try to create initiatives that transition people out of homelessness and that help connect them with services that will work on whatever the issue is, whether it's income or mental health or addiction. For some people, it's just they lost their job and they didn't have a savings, and once they were homeless, they couldn't find their way back. It's a leg up. So that's the goal. The county gave us a report back in December on homelessness, and I was shocked. Over 450, I think, people were transitioned out of homelessness by the county last year. That's amazing. And I really attribute that to the amazing county staff. They came up with this really, I would say, a very comprehensive plan that targeted, allergies or something, that targeted a lot of different avenues to helping people because it's such a complex issue. So we're having some really great success, and so I'm really excited about that. There's also something new happening for veterans. How many veterans do we have here? Quite a few. Okay. The veterans in the region, there's a movement right now. And there is a small group of veterans over by Mather who want to open the Mather Veterans Memorial Hall. And what they have kind of patterned their thoughts after is something that happened in Stanislaus County, where there were a lot of veterans groups. I know this veteran group right here has this amazing hall. Okay. Not everyone does. There's veterans, American Legion veterans in Citrus Heights that have been wishing for years that they had their own place that they could hang their hat. There are a lot of veterans groups that don't have a place that they can go. And so what they're hoping is that they can build this Veterans Service Center that would be a one-stop place for health services, education, job services, family services, pre-civilian assistance, computer lab, meeting rooms, banquet hall, kitchen, lounge, more. Okay, so what the concept behind it is that all the groups in the region kind of pitch in and raise funds, and each group that raises funds can sponsor a room. Maybe a small office is 50 or 60,000, or the big banquet hall is a couple $100,000, and their name goes on that room in perpetuity as they're the ones that brought that room. And at the end of the day, hopefully the county and the federal government and CalVet can bring services that can work out of there and kind of manage the place. That's kind of the concept, that the conversation that's gone on. I promised I would help support the veterans in that way, and Supervisor Natoli and I are both excited about supporting the effort, and so that's just something I wanted you to be aware of. Even though you have a great community hall here to support your other veterans in the region so that they can have a place is kind of a nice, could be a great thing for everyone in the region. I also wanted to just ask, I guess you've probably already seen my article about the Inspector General and the Sheriff. Is there anyone here that does not get my newsletter? Okay. Or my articles, seen my articles. Okay. So just, I want to put a little plug in about this. For those of you who haven't come to the meetings, it's once a month. It's short, hopefully short and fairly easy read. I generally pick topics that I think you'll be interested in. I try to report back on, if I voted no, why I voted no, or how I'm representing you, so you have an idea. We frequently do surveys so that I can get feedback from my district, and there are times when that feedback helps me make decisions on how I vote, or helps me feel more comfortable. Strange irony, I'm a good fit for this district, ideologically, I think, for the most part. So if you're not, do we have a sign up for the newsletter?
I forgot everything at the office.
If you're not,
I've been getting emails from somebody just recently.
okay.
Can I just send
Yeah,
it?
just say, put me on your list, or you can go to saccounty.net and go to my webpage at saccounty.net, and you can sign up for it there. And we also have the Rio Linda paper that just want to thank you for publishing my article in the front page. That was really nice. And so there's other, we try to be in all the print and So the Inspector General and the Sheriff, I don't want to belabor it. What I will say, for those of you who are not aware of it, the Inspector General, earlier this year, several months ago, there was a report that was released by the Inspector General that caused the Sheriff to question whether or not he was politically. He felt he was not. He was concerned that it might have become a political or politically influenced position. And the sheriff was concerned for the deputies and for the department, and he basically closed him out of the sheriff department and said, I want an inspector general, but I don't want this to be a political position. And from that point forward, we went through this very interesting time where we were going back and forth about how the sheriff had locked the inspector general out, and what was the issue, what was it, there were some of us that felt there wasn't enough clarity in the contract, and we felt like we needed to make it more clear of what is their responsibility as an inspector general. And at the end of the day, the inspector general is a position that the sheriff requested would come back. We've had this position over time. There were some years where we didn't have an inspector general because of budget or because we couldn't find one that was qualified. It is not an oversight. The oversight for the sheriff is you. It's us, the voters, people who vote him in. But what it is it's a second eye, and it's not someone who determines whether or not an officer-involved shooting is lawful or not. That's the DA's job. The DA determines whether or not it's lawful. The Inspector General is someone who looks at does the situational analysis and tries to determine, is there something we can do to make our deputies safer or better, or to make our communities, to make our police force better. And his involvement is all around procedures, and his job is to make recommendations that might improve it. An example of that would be education, or training, education and training, or protocol, or there's a lot of different ways that you can work on becoming better so that you can react better in those situations. Because the situations that our sheriff deputies are often in, they don't maybe have that but once in their career. Something like an officer-involved shooting, the majority of those officers never have something like that. It's kind of like when I worked in the emergency room. Most of it was clinic. Every now and then we had a real emergency. And so it's how you react when that emergency happens that determines how well you'll do, and your training is what helps you react better. So at the end of the day, the county determined that we want to keep an inspector general. We're going to be going out for an RFP ASAP. It'll be this month, I think. All the supervisors and the sheriff unanimously agreed on some compromises. It wasn't what all of us liked or wanted, but it was a compromise that this is what we think the Inspector General position looks like. We agreed on that, and I think it was, in considering the situation, it was good that we could have that compromise and agree on it. And so we're moving forward, and we're looking forward to putting out for an RFP and seeing who steps up. And also, it was expressed by the sheriff and the board, if the current Inspector General, Rick Brazil, wants to apply, he definitely can. In fact, the sheriff tried to keep him on board. It was the board of supervisors that couldn't agree on the contract that pushed the meeting forward, that caused his contract to expire. So he could apply, and so we'll just see. We'll see where that goes once we get all those applications in. Does anyone have any questions about it? Yes.
Wouldn't it be a lot better to hire a training officer in the sheriff's department to do a job that somebody outside doesn't know anything about?
The problem is that what we really felt was that the Inspector General is an unbiased, non-political party. So to have someone from the Sheriff's Department represent it is not an unbiased. What we really wanted was someone who was looking at it from different eyes, from the outside in, but not someone who's political, not someone who has a political agenda of any kind. It wasn't about that. It was more about we need someone that can help us see things we might not see. I'm not sure someone from inside the sheriff department can be completely unbiased, just like a politician shouldn't run that either, because they're not unbiased. You know what I'm saying? That's my thought. Yes.
So my question is, the Inspector General, do they have a staff? I saw a salary of $10,000 a month. Do they have a staff that will go right along and actually see what these officers are dealing with out in society?
No, they don't have a staff, but if you read every report, which I read every report that the Inspector General wrote, and I noticed at the end of every single one of his reports, he made a comment regarding de-escalation and the current regulations and how the sheriff should have. There were some comments in some of those reports about how the sheriff should have legislative staff who can every 3 years review legislation and make sure that they're up to living up to the policies that have been passed down from the state. The sheriff's, I called the sheriff on that because I saw that in report after report. And the sheriff said, Sue, yeah, he said that in his report, but number one, everything he says doesn't mean we have to do it. He's not our boss or something like that, number one. Okay, he's not oversight. Number two, what we've generally done at the sheriff's department is we do real time. In other words, when the state of California passes a law that impacts them in any way, they make those adjustments right then and there as soon as possible. They jump all over it. And that's what we do in the county too. When they passed that housing bill last year, the county was running around like chickens with their heads cut off trying to figure out this comprehensive package of bills that was going to change zoning and change the way we do things and impact development and housing and a lot of things. So sheriff does it in real time, and he said that seems to manage it real well, Sue, because I don't have a budget to hire a bunch of people just to sit there and study the laws every 3 years. I mean, that's not, every 3 years isn't good enough for me, and doing it in real time seems to be better and it's more cost effective. We're trying to get more people on the streets, he said. So I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. And I think that answered my question around that whole thing. And it also, what it did is it gave me some perspective into the relationship of the sheriff and the inspector general and how they work together. You know, it's not like an adversarial, but you know, it's like a critical, what do you call it? When I write or when I do things, I say to my staff, what is wrong? What do you think? And they tell me what they think is wrong with it, and it generally, by the time we all get done chewing it up and rewriting it or whatever we do, it's better. So we're better when we have that kind of critique, and sometimes that person who's looking from the outside in doesn't always have the insight that maybe those that are looking from the inside out have. So to answer your question, no, he doesn't have a staff. He does get paid very well. Most public employees get paid very well, and it's awful because what's ending up happening is the taxpayers who live on a much lower median household income are the ones that are footing the bill. And it's impacting services, and that's, I haven't figured out how to fix that yet, but to be honest with you, it's on my mind every day, the direction this has gone in, and how do we get here, and it's happening at every level of government, right up to the top. Yes?
Using the San Francisco CPI is one way that they used to do it on pay increases. They went by salaries in San Francisco to get pay increases there. When I was consulting the public agencies, I found most police chiefs or sheriffs that I dealt with, 25 years of doing that, did exactly what the sheriff did. Piece of legislation come up and get on it and change their policies or whatever is necessary to comply with the new statute from the legislature. And that's what I used to evaluate when I do my audits and consulting with public agencies.
It's working well. It's working well at the sheriff department, and the other thing is, if you read the, I read every single inspector general report that came down. I compared the first paragraph, then I went to the other first paragraph, then I went to the other first paragraph. I tend to be a little. What do you call that? I have a problem, okay? But I was trying to figure out what is he saying in his reports, what is each report saying, and how is this report different? What is the sheriff seeing? And I was trying to figure out what the sheriff saw. And the report was different. Okay, it came out before the DA's final investigation was done, the DA, in every other officer involved shooting, and there were only a couple, but in every officer involved shooting where there was a death, that he waited until the DA had issued their determination of whether or not it was a lawful shoot or not. And in this case, the DA had not finished their investigation yet. So he didn't have the benefit of some, specialists, big-time specialists that the sheriff, that the DA had brought in to investigate it. People who were way more highly qualified than he was in that situation. And so, and then when he applied an opinion onto that shooting scenario, without having that DA determination at the beginning of the report like he did on all the other ones, it kind of leads the general public to maybe think things that they might not have thought if it had been set up in the same way every single time. So I did see where the sheriff had a problem and where he thought it could be political and where he was trying to protect his deputies. Keep in mind, if you have a son who's a deputy, who's involved in an officer, who's out there protecting us on the streets, he ends up in a shooting, he kills someone, and now he's under investigation for murder, which he could go to prison. And if you have that situation, and something like this scenario happens, what happened with our Inspector General, potentially this has positioned us in a way for civil litigation. Even if the DA says this is not, this is a lawful shoot, it was a lawful shoot. Now the victim's family is seeking civil trial. So who's that going to cost? It's going to cost you, because that sheriff deputy is going to be covered under the county budget, and it's costing the county money. So we can't have an inspector general that's doing things that are positioning us for liability. We just can't have that. And we have a responsibility to the taxpayers and to watch over these situations. So I think we did the right thing I think the sheriff, maybe the way he did it might have been a little, maybe not the way some people might have liked, but his heart and his mind were dead on in the right place. He was protecting the integrity of his department, and I stand behind him 1,000% on that, and I will never say anything different. Okay, any other questions about that? Okay. I wanted to let you know that I heard from our staff that we had some complaints about fireworks on New Year's.
Guns.
Yeah, we go through this every 4th of July.
Actually, this year was a little bit subdued.
Yeah, it was.
100% subdued.
Okay,
I didn't hear
It was more
one
guns.
gunshot.
More gunshots.
Yeah, it was more gunshots. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I didn't hear fireworks as much as I heard guns everywhere. I heard tons of guns.
It's more 4th of July every year.
Is it at midnight? No,
Yeah.
is how
It was
starts?
right at, it was 9 o'clock.
7, 8, 9.
Yeah, it started.
East Coast
Okay, these rural people are wild, okay?
Yes, we are.
Well, the one thing I wanted to tell you is that it's interesting because I have my chief of staff is an intellectual guy, so if something's going on, he's trying to figure out how he wants to know how the district feels about it. So he immediately, I was on vacation, he did a survey, and he surveyed to see if people want fireworks or not, how people feel about fireworks. And over 70% still want legal fireworks. And so what I did want to tell you is this is an ongoing challenge because it's kind of a tradition, an American tradition, fireworks. And what deputies have been doing over time is they're trying to target the large distributors of these illegal fireworks, because the fact that those are so easy for people to get is a big part of the problem. And so there is some things that you can do. You can go online and get that phone, not online, on that phone app called Nail 'em. Does anyone have that? The problem is it's really hard. It's hard because you hear the firework and it's done. So you call the police and they come out. What are they going to do? They can't see anything. They can't prove it. There isn't anything they can do. That you just took them away from someone else who was getting stabbed down the street, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't have the luxury to have everyone on every corner, and they can't get to it in time. And so when you're reporting, though, to the Nail 'em, even if you report it and you think nothing is happening, you can, what they're doing through this technology is they're identifying trends of where a large number of these things are going on, and that lets them know maybe where it's being dealt, where it's available. And that lets them know where the problem kind of centers, where the heat of the problem is. So that helps our police, and they are, that is something that they're working on. In the next year, okay, last year was my first year on this job, okay, and right away we came out, he came out with all these surveys, okay, questioning, we wanted to know how you felt about things, because one of my campaign promises was that I would not forget who I work for. And how do you do that? You know how they feel, and you represent them well. And how do you represent them if you're not doing what they think is good? So what we did is we sent out those surveys. Then over time we sent out more surveys. And what we came to understand is that the surveys are showing us some trends. Like initially when we did the surveys, when I first came on board, homelessness was the third biggest concern. Roads and what else was up there? Crime was number one. Then roads, and then homelessness. Homelessness is now creeping up all over my district. It's becoming the number one. And so that kind of lets us know there's a growing problem and it's a trend that's concerning. So I just wanted you to know that time is coming. We're going to be, our surveys are online. If you get the eBlast newsletter, it'll come to you, and then you can fill out the survey and let us know how you feel. And once you fill it out, then you're dialed in. If you like my Facebook page and follow me, then you'll get the feedback of activities that I'm doing, but you'll also know, like you'll see how that survey is working. How many people like this and how many don't. There was one situation, it was around the Inspector General issue. And there were people that were emailing me and saying, Sue, I don't know if you're aware, because in my district, the big part of my district supported the sheriff. And then at the last minute, before we were having this big meeting, and all these people from, I won't say the name of the organization, but certain organizations came down to the board chamber to testify against or for the sheriff. Then there was a lot of activity on my Facebook page, and my Facebook page was shared to a lot of people out of my district, out of my region, out of my state.
Oh my goodness.
Who voted on my survey and basically came in and hijacked my survey and skewed the results to completely go upside down to say they didn't support the sheriff. When that was weird, because I felt like people appreciated law enforcement in my district. And so I think what I wanted to let you know is, I still can see you. I can see you. in the surveys, even if people are voting from outside, I know who's voting from outside, the geographic range of what's going on there, and I have the insight is good. I have good insight on my people. And one person actually called me, and I said, you don't have to worry. No one can take my people's voice away. I know who's voting. Pardon me?
Why don't you stay off of Facebook?
Well, you know,
Well, if you can't control where it goes, maybe you shouldn't be on. I'm not on Facebook. So.
The benefit of Facebook for me is there's a lot of people on Facebook, and they really appreciate the communications. It's just one way that I do it. It's not the only way. I work with print media. There's how many print magazines do we, I mean, in every town we go
26 total papers.
26 print magazines that we work through. We also do these meetings, and we do an online town hall, and that online town hall allows people who can't come to these meetings to watch it, or some people come and they still watch it. In fact, Ken, I should acknowledge Ken. I mean, he's such a nice guy. He comes out to every one of my meetings. And, you know, I hate being videotaped. I did not run for this job so that I could be on Facebook and in the video. It's just not my forte. But, you know, it's something you got to do, so you just do it. But Ken is so nice. He smiles while he's doing that. But now, can someone watch that video? Like, if someone had gone on my Facebook tonight, could they watch this video, Ken? Or Matt?
Yeah, they can watch it tonight, and if they're hard of hearing, they can click the closed captioning, and they can see the dialogue there also.
Okay, so is there anyone here that's ever watched the online town hall? I guess it starts when I start online, live, and then it goes off. It doesn't stay there, right?
It stays.
Oh, it stays. Oh gosh. See, I hate that because I do have bad nights, and that's not good.
I'd like to take a minute of your time and go back to the survey on the fireworks.
Okay.
And the reason that the survey that you're involved with there is successful, they want fireworks, is because fireworks are important for one reason. Non-profit organizations. That's all. Many counties have outlawed fireworks, and cities have altogether, and I wouldn't want that to happen in Sacramento. So I have an idea that would solve that problem, and how the cops could get illegal fireworks and arrest them. And that's the fireworks company make money. So why can't they afford to put on fireworks? All you people go out and buy all the fireworks you want, you take them and give them to the fireworks people, and they put on a fireworks demonstration for you, from your fireworks, everybody's. And then the other fireworks that's set off would be illegal. And so the cops don't have to have no problem arresting them.
Well, we already have laws that, you know, there are rockets and certain fireworks that are illegal that people can still get their hands on and people are distributing. So that is the goal, is to keep the legal ones going and stop the illegal ones.
Well, how we do that is, what I'm saying is that, like the fireworks people could set up, just like Cal Expo does, or down by the river, when they set up, they have somebody in charge of doing that. It's not just hit or miss, everybody does it. So when you control them, you're still able to buy fireworks and support nonprofits. That's what it's all about, is supporting nonprofits. They thrive on the fireworks business.
I'm not sure, you know, what you mean. You're saying have a big firework display and don't sell it to the neighbors?
No, sell it then. You buy your fireworks.
Oh, and then you have to take it somewhere else?
For example, let's take a fireman.
Okay.
Let's take a fireman.
Are you just saying buy it and then take it somewhere else where that's the only place you can do it?
Yeah, take a fireman and set in the middle of the
Well, that's one good idea. did.
Take all the fireworks and give them to the fire department. They set them all off. Everybody gathered around like a parade. You know?
Well, we already have rules that tell people what to do, and they don't do that. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they'll do that.
My neighbor.
You know what I'm saying? But it's good. It's a thought, and those are some of the questions that we ask in our surveys to see how people feel about these issues.
That's better than outlawing them and non-profits as we heard about fireworks.
Yeah, I know, and it is an American tradition. I mean, let's face it.
Anyway, it would be safer because you have, like the fire department in charge of setting off fireworks. Everybody buys their fireworks, takes them to the fire department, they set them off.
Yeah. All right.
M80s and the...
Yes.
The problem with that is families with children, and children don't want to drag the kids out to places. That's an impossible task.
Yeah, otherwise we go to the big fireworks display.
Yeah, some people do.
Great.
So, okay, so I just will quickly mention, I'm not going to spend any time, not a whole lot of time, but on the panhandle issue. The panhandle issue is going to be handled this year at LAFCO. And I know there was the big issue with the Park and Rec, who wanted to keep the services, and they lost the battle on the service, tax service agreement. That is something that, you know, when it goes to LABCO, that issue is over. We'll be talking about annexation tax. So I'll be anxious for the Park and Rec to communicate with me and the community to communicate with me on that. To me, it looks like the annexation wasn't a problem with the Rec and Park. I didn't have a problem with it. It's the best thing for the city and the development there. But anyway, does anyone else have any questions? Charlie?
I want to go back to your first topic about the unincorporated area and focusing on potentially revivable shopping centers and the consultant. One of the things that I'm concerned with is the lack of land use ability that unincorporated areas have. And specifically to point is that we have a Dollar General that is apparently already approved except for formalities because they met all the conditions to go in at the arches. And one of the things that, and I've been following it on Facebook, the community as a whole, I mean, there's plenty of people that don't have any problem with the Dollar General, but there's lots of other people that are pointing out how, you know, there's researches that have been done where and lots of Dollar Generals are going in. They're going in by the hundreds across the country. And they drag down already depressed areas, and they tend to go into depressed areas. Right. And so I feel like the community's chance to do anything about that was never, it didn't ever come to CPAC because they met all the conditions of the SPA. So my understanding is that they changed something and they may be coming to CPAC, and we may have an opportunity to object to the Dollar General on a formal basis. Do you know anything about that?
I do not. I'm probably the last person to learn about businesses and negotiations that are happening on real property or businesses. And the reason for that is they have that conversation. They do their study and their demographics. Then they look at the zoning. If it's doable and it's all zoned for that, it's easier, not easy, but easier. And if there's changes they have to make in the zoning, then it goes through the CPAC, and that's your opportunity to get involved in how. And another opportunity you have is to proactively go after businesses that you want to see there.
Yes.
And I can be involved in that if you want me to. I'll be happy to help.
Yes.
Well, I'm Charlie, and you have more info on that than I do currently. But if you shoot me a reminder in an email or something, I'm happy to get the answer to that tomorrow for you.
Okay.
And then I can shoot it over to Rio Linda online or something so everybody
And get
can
it
read
out, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important because the community as a whole, I mean, like I said, I've been watching it on Facebook, and there's both sides. You know, there's plenty of people that said, oh, a Dollar General is fine, put a Dollar General in. But there's also a large number of people that seem to feel like that's not the kind of business they want at our gateway. Our arches, those four corners are the gateway to Rio Linda. And we would, I don't object to a Dollar General going down here at Rio Linda Plaza or anywhere along other areas. It's just not at the arches.
Yeah, Charlie, you bring up a good point, and on a side point to that, because I've had discussions lately about this type of issue, and Rio Linda especially has a lot of old zoning. And so a lot of that old zoning was wide open. And if you were relatively a similar business, or the zoning was not specific to a certain type. Nowadays, it's much more specific. If you want to make any kind of change, and it's going to go through a whole process, triggering with CPAC, moving up through Planning Commission, going to the board. But on these old businesses, a lot you're finding that old thing. And so, if this is, it is definitely news to me that it's going back to CPAC. That doesn't mean it's not. Yeah, but I'd certainly love to have that opportunity for people to have their voice on something like that if that exists here. Yeah, because a lot of times it doesn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he announced that it was coming back at the last CPAC.
From Planning Commission? Or from Planning?
From Planning.
Okay, excellent. I'll verify it tomorrow for you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So, my name's Michael Grabo. I'm from Alberta. Hi. Yeah. What I'd like to be able to kind of emphasize is what you were discussing earlier about leakage. I can guarantee you there is no leakage to a dollar store. So that there's nobody leaving Rio Linda or Alberta to go shop at a dollar store. What we need is to be able to upgrade. I'm really excited about having Starbucks coming in. I'm really excited about having some other places being brought in that actually ups our game. Now, it's not that we need a mall in any way, shape, or form. We need to be able to have maybe more small business locations where people can actually start and be able to get a little bit more activity going for their own local area. But I just don't see, as Charlie pointed out, the whole idea of bringing in more of just saying, hey, y'all just can't afford anything more than $1. And I think we can, but I think we need to be able to up the game and open it up. And look at what truly is the leakage. What are we going to? I know I'm going over to Natomas or up into Antelope for most of my shopping needs that are outside of what's not available here in our community.
Right.
And I'd like to be able to just drop my cash here.
And
not that I have much, but
that's one of the things we ran into. I'll give you one of the things we ran into in Citrus Heights, because on almost every corner we were getting the 99-cent dollar stores. We were getting massage parlors popping up everywhere, even in private office complexes, which.
Another type of private.
When someone comes to your office to sublease and they ask if there's a restroom, you're like, oh. Yes, okay. Dollars, the same thing happened in Orangevale. They have tire stores, gas stations, auto body, they have a lot of this one thing that seems to have gone there. I'm not sure why, or seems to want to be there. I think, and we can't control, it's a property issue.
Right.
It's a private property issue, so we can't control how people want to sell their property. They don't really care. They just want to get rid of their property, right? Or they're just trying to develop it and get out of it, or whatever. But what we can do is we can work with Visions, who has worked tirelessly on this SPA, and look at the SPA and say, is there some loopholes in there that we need to kind of close? Right. Maybe that's a place where our office and planning can help make sure that we don't have, if you have a dollar store, there's only going to be one. You don't need more than one. You know what I'm saying? So because that is another barrier of entry, or a way to open doors in some cases too.
Well, I think we have the capability of doing something that could be really amazing. I think this community has the wherewithal to be able to grow and to be able to take care of our own needs in this space.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be able to see us be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, you
Then we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay. Boss.
Amen.
I think it ties into homelessness too, that whole Dollar Tree. Because if you look at the front of food stores, where do they hang out at?
Yes.
Along you bring in a Dollar General store, or 99-cent store, or whatever, what do you usually see hanging out there? So with that being said, that being the gateway of Rio Linda, what's going to bring in any opportunity? Who's going to want to come in and step in homelessness, whatever feces, whatever you want throughout that, and dealing with that? So you bring in a Dollar General store, they're going to be hanging around there all day long, and I don't think that's the forefront you want to see for Rio Linda coming in. I know I don't want to.
The biggest leakage that you have in Rio Linda, you can't see this, but this is the leakage.
Right.
There's a ton of leakage, okay, and it's going to a radius. 1 mile, 2 mile, and 3 mile radius. And the biggest leakage that you have is general merchandise stores and food and beverage stores. Motor vehicle parts is medium. Clothing and clothing accessories is going 3 miles out. So, but your biggest is general merchandise, food and beverage right now. That's your biggest in clothing and auto parts. And so, this is going to get, part of the problem is, is money. And the cost to come in and build. Do they have to tear something down in order to build? In California, everything is hard with environmental laws, and so the cost to develop something is hard, and so they tend to go, the ones that tend to have the capacity to come in, want to look for inexpensive land, for easy opportunities where it's zoned properly, where they don't have to tear it down, and where the demographics are there. Almost anything could come in here and probably do pretty well, especially the fact that you have 2 subdivisions that are going to start developing soon. There's a bright horizon. There's a rainbow overview. Yeah, there's opportunity here.
Absolutely.
If by some chance the Dollar General is going to be put there, is there a way that we can hold their feet to the fire to make sure they don't become, because they have stuff that's more than $1, but what I've noticed when I've gone in there is that they're just junky looking inside. They don't keep it looking nice. It's just junk.
As long as they're living up to the zoning regulations and all that, if they're not keeping up their outside or something like that, code enforcement can go out. But what happens when you have a business that's not maintaining the exterior or that's doing something wrong like that, code enforcement goes out and they determine if they're breaking a law or regulation. And if they're not, there isn't anything anyone can do. I mean, so hold their feet to the fire. I have a feeling in Rio Linda, hold your feet to the fire is really real.
It means fire.
I just have a feeling. Okay, this is the last question.
And it's not really a question, it's a comment. My name's Gary Bluebell, and I'm an officer here at the post.
Oh.
And this goes back to your veterans homeless program. You don't have to be a member of a veterans organization as a veteran to get help. No veteran has ever turned away here. We have several veterans that this is almost their home. They have no place to go. If they can't get food at Meals on Wheels, because it's not Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, they eat here. If a veteran comes in here and can't pay a bill, we help them. If they need to go to the VA, we take them to the VA. So I understand the need for a regional clearinghouse, but at the same time, our veterans group here is no different than all of the other, I think, 53 veterans organizations in the county that provide the same thing. We have a veteran service officer. We're connected to all of the VA services directly. So if you, and as I understand through the state American Legion, up to 20% of the homeless population are now veterans. And that's a lot.
It's 24.
24, is that what it is? Yeah.
24%.
Exactly. So if you know veterans, or if you find a veteran and they are homeless, you can always send them here.
That's a great way to end our meeting, and also to say that the veterans are kind of going through this transition where they're aging, all the older wars, and then there's younger veterans who don't come out, they don't come out and hang out because they're out working or whatever. That's what I'm being told anyway. Is that not true?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we have, I don't think we have, we don't have more than 3 or 4 veterans under the age of 50.
Yeah, and so the goal is to figure out how do we engage them, because if they're isolated, then they don't know there's this wonderful community that's here for them.
Well, it's the veterans group's fault, though. We need to be more contemporary. We need to understand what they do. So now we're updating our website. We're hiring a social media person.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Okay.
I know you had to ask questions.
I know, and I get in trouble every meeting for this. You're going to get me in trouble by him. Okay, I'll
I just have
I can do it.
You just behave yourself tomorrow. So, I appreciate everything you're doing for our community. We have a few issues still out here in Rio Linda, and one of them is increased crime, particularly in my neighborhood, but I also am seeing it in other neighborhoods as well. And I wanted to kind of find out, I think you are aware of it, and I probably think the sheriff is aware of it, but can you tell me what may be going on right now to decrease the incidence of crime in our community, and what you see forecasting forward that might help us out there?
Yeah. One thing I can tell you is that our sheriff department, Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, has reduced crime year over year, and actually lowered crime more than any other agency in the region. So they've done a really good job with what they had to work with on a tight budget. Considering that we have a lot of infrastructure, jails that are over 30 years old, and laws that, new laws that have put requirements on how we, manage the jails and people in the jails, that's going to cost us millions, tens and over $100 million. Okay. So the question is, how do we pay for all this stuff and still have boots on the ground, which was one of my campaign goals also. And one of the things that the Sheriff Department is doing is they're focused on community-based programs. They're having this a lot of success with that nationwide to tackle crime before it happens. In other words, get involved with young children from communities, lower income or lower poverty type other communities. Get involved with them. Let them know that the sheriff is your friend. We're working with the DA in partnership with the sheriff and the county and the public to have these second chance programs where juvenile delinquents can be, if they commit a crime, instead of going to jail, they can opt to go through a 9-month program where they go to counsel. They have to go to counseling and they have to do certain things, and that doesn't put that felony on their record. And they have a second chance at things. And we have that program for delinquent, for youth, for veterans. We have that in several areas. And so there's a lot of community programs that the sheriff has that are trying to reach from different angles at what seems to be, in my opinion, which isn't really worth much, but in my opinion, the family unit, you know, it's the family unit, and it's that children don't have the same structure and guidance. Children that are just left to their own, all their friends in the neighborhood can get up to no good. So, you know, if we try to, I think that the goal is to try to figure out how can we reduce crime. The other thing they're doing is they're working on with the Sheriff Hot team to tackle the homeless issues. And what they're doing there is their biggest goal is to build trust and relationships and to help people. And so even if someone doesn't want to come in, they have that phone app where they can do a survey, 15-point question, take a picture, find out who they are, do they have a record. Now they're in the system. Every time they touch them, they put that in the system. Now they know where the hot spots are, where more people are congregating all at once, where they can get relationships with people. So when something goes down, they can actually call these people and say, who do you know? What's going on there? And they have an inside scoop from the people that are homeless on their phones, because homeless people have smartphones. There's a lot going on. It's unbelievable the amount of effort that goes into trying to tackle the sickness of our society. And in my opinion, I guess I think it starts with the family. And, you know, and so, but we're doing our best. The sheriff is doing his very best on a limited budget to do that. And if you have crime, the sheriff does have quarterly meetings that they come out. I encourage all of you to go to the sheriff's meetings. They're really informative, and you can ask them all those hard questions and find out what and why. Generally, what I've found is when people say, you know, I can't get anyone on the phone, they say, even if you can't get anyone out there, keep calling. Because when you keep calling and let us know there's crime in an area, it lets us know this is happening. So don't not call because you don't think they're going to come. Call and at least report it so they know it's happened. Because even if it's not an actual crime, but it's something that just scared you or whatever, what they know that's going on gives them an oversight over the bigger picture of what's going on. And they really do care. It's just that their funding is only so big, and they don't have the resources.
Do you know anything about the funding for there's a big problem here? Okay, now I'm going to get upset.
Just say thank you all for coming so much. I'll say